hello, and welcome back to the show for the 34th official episode of Screen Preach, where we talk about movies and TV in the name of the Godfather, the Son of Odin, and the Holy Jedi. I'm your host, Ben Morganti, and I will be letting you know this week that I watched the new Mulan movie, and that is what I will talk about today. But before we get to that, I gotta do a little Mandalorian talk, okay? Right off the bat, what I'm watching this week, I did a little Pirates of the Caribbean marathon. And you know, that first trilogy, those first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies are solid. It's a solid trilogy, no problems, no quarrels from me with those first three. It's all good there. You know, it ends in a nice way, too. What they did was they made two more that they didn't need to make. That's what I've been watching, and then The Mandalorian. Okay, so I got to talk about it because there's got spoilers. Okay, spoilers for The Mandalorian. If you haven't watched it yet, there are spoilers, and it's as simple as this. They gave us one of their best episodes yet this week. 30-minute episode too. It was so short and it was so great. You know, all you Star Wars fans out there who've been sleeping on the animated shows like Clone Wars and Rebels, now you should really think about not sleeping on them because there's connections. Okay, we have a Clone Wars character who showed up in the latest episode, Bo-Katan. Okay, and it just blew the roof off of everything. Now it's all coming together in an interesting way. Basically, it makes sense now why the Mandalorians that we've seen are a little different than the ones we've known. Why they have to keep their helmets on. Why they are recruiting non-Mandalorians like Din Djarin, our main character. And it's because it turns out their whole clan is based off of, I guess, Death Watch, which is if you know the animated shows, Mandalorians are pretty split. And there were two sides. There was Death Watch, and then there was the Night Owls, and they believe in different things. So right off the bat, you see Bo-Katan and two other Mandalorians, whether they take their helmets off, and Din Djarin is like, "What the fuck's going on here?" Anyway, also a big name drop. Look, it's heading in a direction that we knew was coming because all the things that we were talking about before the season actually started, when things were in production, they all seem to be true and real. Things are coming to life, you know. It's almost exactly how we thought with certain characters showing up. Look, it was fucking epic. I mean, Bo-Katan just like, right, like, you're like, holy shit, she's a better warrior than he is. Like, yeah, she's a freaking veteran of the Clone Wars and shit, dude. I mean, right off the bat, you can see she's a veteran, a weathered warrior, a weathered Mandalorian warrior, and she's after the Darksaber because it was hers previous, and they stole it from her. All the questions we had are starting to get answered, basically. Go check out the episode. I'm too hype here. I had to talk about it for a second. Too hype. Nothing will ever beat Star Wars on the screen, okay? It's where it started. It's where it'll always be the best. I love the books, but nothing will ever beat it. Speaking of the books, I just keep going, and it's an awesome and fun binge. The books are great. The whole legend storyline of Luke, Han, and Leia, it's great. My only quarrels with it are there's no diversity at all. I mean, it's really weird. Like, there's no black characters. They never show up. It's just, like, kind of strange. And maybe authors. You know, there are other letters in the alphabet that we use to start first names with besides K and C. I swear to God, every freaking character. Kip, Kyle, Corin, Kier, Corner. I mean, Jesus. Like, it's like, that's like if you were writing a movie, like, that's a big no-no. Like, don't make too many characters with the same sounding names, because then it gets confusing for audiences. It's really kind of no different with reading a book. You can get pretty confused. I don't understand why they can't ever name anybody with a different letter than K or C. It's weird. That's it here on Catching Us Up. We're going to get to the news of the week now, because there was a lot this week, and I'm going to go through it as fluidly as I can. So here we at with the news of the week. Bum. I'll go from... Yeah, I should probably go from the bottom up, right? What was the first... Well, first of all, obviously, Alex Trebek, Jeopardy host for 40 years, whatever. Like, he passed. When we heard about his cancer diagnosis, we knew this was coming because of the kind of cancer it was. And I think just it's inspiring how he handled it. Yeah, especially for people like me. There's cancer in my history, my family history. Here, my father had cancer and beat it, and it's just like when people handle it a certain way and promote it a certain way. He was always an inspirational guy, even if you didn't watch Jeopardy all the time. Like I didn't watch Jeopardy really, but you always knew who he was. You always knew. It's so rest in peace, to this guy that we all basically all grew up like hearing, like even if you're not like you knew Jeopardy was coming on. Alex Trebek. I mean, it's crazy. So we'll start with that, with the news, and then moving on, A Quiet Place spin-off is in the works. So aside from doing a sequel, now they're going to do spin-offs. I don't like it. I already don't like it. The sequel's fine. Okay, do one sequel. But I mean, now you're turning it into a franchise thing. Why is it always got to go this direction? I'm not going to really complain totally, though, because if you can do it right, it's good quality. How can I complain, really? I don't know. But yeah, they're doing a spinoff. So after the sequel, which we were all supposed to see back in March, and now we're going to see literally a whole fucking year later than it was supposed to come out, they're doing a spinoff on it. And, yeah. Then we got WandaVision calling back to classic sitcoms and live studio audiences and black and white premieres and everything when they premiere. And it is official. They will be premiering in January of 2021, January 15th, 2021. WandaVision will premiere. It will kick off Phase 4 of the MCU and the next big saga of the MCU. I think that's honestly the best one to kick it off because of how weird this saga is probably going to be. And yeah, 2020 officially no Marvel projects. Like 2020 was a full year off. It's kind of like funny how it works out a little bit. It's like you got the Infinity Saga, it comes to a fantastic end, and then it's nice. It's effective, I think. You have a full year break before the next saga even starts. Makes more sense to me, kind of, Even though for me, Spider-Man Far From Home was not an Infinity Saga epilogue like Feige considers it. For me, that was kind of the start to Phase 4 and the next saga, because you don't need an epilogue. Endgame ends it, and then Spider-Man Far From Home starts the next. Now we're into the next phase. As far as that's how I go by it. It just makes more sense to me to do it that way. Yeah. WandaVision coming. The Outsider. So here's something interesting, because of course they wouldn't renew The Outsider for a second season because they adapted the whole book in one season. Why would there be a second season? But it turns out the writers want to do some kind of like new storyline for Cynthia Vario's character. Why am I blanking on her name right now? I read the book and watched the show, and I can't remember her name right now. they want to like take her character and do like a whole storyline for her. It wouldn't be based on the book anymore because Stephen King didn't do that. But HBO passed on it. Now they're looking to shop it somewhere else. So it might show up on another network or streaming service. But The Outsider will not be returning on HBO. Still might return somewhere else. Interesting stuff. I don't think you need to do anymore. You adapted it nice, and that's I don't. But we'll see what they decide to do. The Umbrella Academy was renewed for a third season. Leslie Headland teases her Star Wars series. She said it is set in a timeline fans don't know much about. That is already got me hyped. Which era? I mean, it's got to be the High Republic, right? They're going in the High Republic's direction with these comics and books coming out. Why not? Why wouldn't there be TV series and movies in that same timeline? So that is her teasing us. Could be, though, it could be another completely different timeline. Whatever. But that's interesting already. I wonder what it is. Yeah. Also, we got a look at the next season of American Horror Story with a little teaser poster. What could it be about this season? Also, don't forget they're doing an American Horror Stories TV series now, which is different. It's a new show. It's separate. Basically, every episode of the season is like a singular storyline. American Horror Story is also coming, and they released a little teaser for that too. A teaser poster, not teaser trailer. So check those out. And yeah, Fantastic Beasts 3. They're looking at Mads Mikkelsen, yeah, to replace Johnny Depp as Grindelwald. That could work. Like I told you guys last week, they're replacing Johnny Depp. I don't think it's. I think this Fantastic Beasts series is already pretty fucked up. But yeah, they're looking at him. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion gets an HBO Max premiere date and a little trailer. I posted it on Instagram, but go check it out, the whole thing. So they're doing that, and that's going to be their first reunion of what looks like a few different ones they're planning on doing. The Friends reunion is set to begin production in early 2021. Ozark ups Navarro cartel boss to a series regular, naturally. We know that season 4 is to be split in 2 parts and will be the end of the show. Can't wait for that. Wonder Woman 1984. Warner Bros. Is actually mulling over a potential release on a streaming service. Or delaying it even further. Imagine they just dropped that shit somewhere. Probably HBO Max. Definitely HBO Max. It's not going to be anywhere else. We'll see how things start to... all these studios got to make decisions with releases, I just hope I don't have to fucking miss out on what... I gotta see... I don't know. I gotta see Marvel movies in theaters, man. When Marvel movies are coming out, I gotta see them in movie theaters. Not at home with all the... It's just, no. I gotta see it in a fucking theater. That's all I know. The live-action Lilo and Stitch movie has hired a director, John M. Chu. I forgot they're making one of those. They have a director now. And speaking of Marvel, altogether here, the big news this week was Chris Pratt is official. He has joined the cast of Thor, Love and Thunder. Star-Lord is to be a main character in the next Thor movie. I love it. I love the crossing over. It was amazing when they did it in Ragnarok, Hulk and Thor in the same movie, just teaming up. Now you got Thor and Star-Lord, who I'm not 100% sure why Star-Lord's in it and no one else. But then again, I think Guardians 3 comes out before Thor, Love and Thunder, so we'll figure out why it would only be... Maybe something happens where it's only Star-Lord. I don't know. But he is going to be in that movie. And that is our news of the week this week. Let's get to our analysis of the week. And I did watch the new Mulan. Anyone who didn't like it, sorry. It was fucking fire. I really enjoyed this movie. I really did. It wasn't great. It wasn't amazing, but it was very enjoyable. So let's talk about it a little bit. Spoilers ahead if you didn't watch Mulan yet, but then again, spoilers for Mulan. Just if you've seen the cartoon, it ends similarly. It's all the same stuff. Um, yeah, honor, courage, and truth, and devotion to family. Great themes in the film, but then again, they have the cartoon to pull from. It's that same kind of story. That story all the way through and through of Mulan. The themes are great. It's very impactful, very resonant. Um, does the structure and writing of this film work? I think it did. Yes, the structure worked. It paced out pretty much perfectly. It didn't feel too long or too short. Some beats or character decisions needed a little more fleshing out, but not so much that you can't enjoy it. For instance, there might have needed to be a moment with just Commander Tong and the others where they reflect and maybe realize they were harsh on Mulan after banishing her, before seeing her return and them accepting her pretty quickly after shunning her. Like, she comes right back to them pretty much, like, right away. And after shunning, she says a few words, and all of a sudden they accept her. It was kind of it might have needed a little bit more, on their part, kind of recollecting what they just did to her. Maybe a little bit. It's fine, it was still believable, but it could have been more impactful with more depth. I think, though, the most important reason for even needing this film right now is that even though it's a remake, it manages to be as relevant and as impactful now as it was 20 years ago with the original. It really is. And that's because we care about Mulan. We care about seeing change and progress for her and her people. And we care because her arc is a satisfying one that we know of already and don't mind seeing again. That's how I felt watching it. Didn't mind seeing this story again in live action at all. I'll get to the choices they made, the differences between the two, and why I thought it was actually good in this case, that the changes they made, from the cartoon to this, the changes were actually, people probably didn't like the movie because of the changes. I am the other way. I liked the movie because of the changes and because of other things, obviously. So the plot points are pretty straightforward in terms of exposition. It was important to establish the world and how Mulan doesn't fit into it. Her being unique is important for showing the person she will become. The inciting action is establishing her chi, that which makes her special. The true start is the extraneous action taking form as she makes a decision to leave and fight. There is a reversal, and it's when she nearly dies fighting her oppositional presence. I thought the female antagonist in this was like a very, very good antagonist, because it's like she's like the opposite of Mulan. They are so similar, and yet they're opposing each other. I thought that was good. And it comes with a great twist at the end, which is that she helps Mulan. The down and out is her expulsion, reaffirmation, her acceptance, and leading of the soldiers into the climax. Sometimes there were almost multiple plot points having the same effect closely together not spread out, kind of having the same effect. Like almost having multiple endings, which they kind of have multiple endings at the end, but it did not work. I can't even explain really how, but they did have the cartoon to work off of, so I suppose that's why it worked overall in the end, because the cartoon was so great, and this one remained good enough because of it. That's how I felt about Aladdin, though, too. My overall opinion, speaking of the cartoon, so I mentioned this with Aladdin, so I'll mention it here. In order for the Disney remakes to work, they have to look beyond the originals. I've noticed some people didn't like the movie because it was too Disney-fied. This is something people said. But I'd argue it's the opposite of that. They removed the silly Disney-fied elements, like a talking dragon, even its musical elements, which, if you know me by now, I don't like musical elements. I feel like they halt the narrative. I don't prefer it. I liked that they got rid of the musical elements. That, of course, is all preference. I like this movie as an action drama, which is what it came off as instead. So I'm glad there was no singing in it. that would have been Disney-fied. One thing the original had that this one didn't was an air of romance in the story. You could see that as a minus in this, but I saw it as a plus. Why do we need Mulan to identify with a lover, with a man, when individually she is as strong as any man in the story? She's the warrior we watch and care about. The story's titled after her. It's Mulan's tale. We didn't need the romantic element like the original had. They decided to go with a phoenix as well in this instead of a dragon because it's a little more realistic. And in China, culturally, there's probably a thematic purpose to a phoenix that fits well with Mulan's character. These things are laid out by our character in the story. What wasn't in this one, but was in the original, shouldn't necessarily be looked at as a bad thing. Did you want a beat-by-beat remake or something a little different? I'm going to go with something a little different, and that's what this one gave us. The exclusions of things from the original, for me, made the story feel more fresh. So it's also worth pointing out that I had to go back and rewatch the original, and if you had never seen it, you wouldn't be thinking of it as a reference point for every little fucking thing, which you shouldn't do anyway when you go into a movie. Go in with an open mind and without expectations, and you'll probably feel better. The point is, the themes resonate and the story flows. That's always enough for me. Was it great or amazing? No. But it was far from bad, and I enjoyed it. Yifei Liu, who played Mulan in this, did a really great job making us care about her character. She was a good fit to play Mulan. She even performed 90% of her own stunts for the role. Dedication. And that's what this film did a really fantastic job with, and it was the choreography. The fight scenes felt genuine for me. Some people thought they were like, again, Disney-fied, like not feeling real or whatever. I don't know. They were actually, for me, really cool. They had like a solid air of Chinese kung fu, invigorating every moment. I felt those moments. They were fun to watch. Sometimes they got a little flashy with things. The shot of her standing with the phoenix wings spreading behind her at the end, but that was a little forced. Some of her moves, which are attributed to the powerful chi she has, didn't feel believable sometimes, only because the story itself could have done a little better fleshing out what chi actually is and how it works. Like, they should have maybe expanded on that in the story. And it would help explain some of the amazing things she could do. Still, some of the moves that they used, like the choreography, really did blow me away. They were creative. Especially having her signature move be the killing blow to our villain in the end. The move that really stuns the other characters early in the film is the same move she uses to beat the bad guy in the end. That's good writing. Other performances worth mentioning are Donnie Yen and Jet Li, but I was wondering when Ming-Na Wen was going to have her little cameo, and surely she did at the end to introduce Mulan. She, of course, voiced the original Mulan back in '98, and since then has become well known for other things like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and The Mandalorian. I've rather enjoyed the Disney remakes. Aladdin and Mulan were both really fun to watch, even though they had previous work to pull from. I still felt like I was watching something fresh with both of them. Didn't feel like a beat-for-beat remake. You know what felt like a beat-for-beat remake with me? It was Lion King. When they did Lion King, didn't feel really much different than the cartoon. And that was probably for me, that's why it didn't work for me as much as these did. So with that being said, how can I give this movie any lower of a rating than I gave Aladdin? I'm actually going to give it a bit of a higher rating than I gave Aladdin, because I think I enjoyed it more. I give it an 8.1 out of 10. It's good. Definitely go check it out. This is one of those first, this was a big thing during the pandemic. They released it right onto Disney Plus. It skipped the theater. And that's where you can watch it. I, of course, have it on Apple, but that's where you would be able to watch it. You have to pay $30 to watch it. But that is, it's worth it. I think it's worth it. You spend almost $30 anyway when you go to the theater. Think about it. Ticket, the food, almost 30, right? Especially these days. expensive to go to the movies. Let's do our fun fact of the week this week. I figured I'd do all Disney since we're doing Mulan. Marvel is Disney. Star Wars is Disney. I can pick from any of these things, so let's do it. I love this little trivia because once you hear it, you can't help but see it when you watch again. Did you know that Bradley Cooper, who voices Rocket Raccoon in Guardians of the Galaxy and Avengers, based his portrayal of the character, including his distinct voice, temper, and mannerisms, on Joe Pesci, and specifically Joe Pesci's character Tommy DeVito from Goodfellas. I feel like sometimes people can even forget that it's Bradley Cooper voicing that role, and it actually happens to be one of his most famous roles because of it. It was even confirmed that he got paid more money to voice Rocket Raccoon than he did for either of his roles in Silver Linings Playbook and The Hangover, combined. Interesting. I love that fact, and I can see it. Watch the movie, you can tell he's pulling from Pesci a little bit to play that role. So let's do our question of the week. We will follow up on last week, of course. I asked, what was the funniest comedy of the 2010s decade? Especially after thinking that the decade that came before it was much better. It was a good question. It is a good question. I said 21 Jump Street. You know, it was number one, though, on the list for most people, and I'll accept it. Deadpool. Sure. That's not a comedy first, though. And that's really what I was thinking about. So this list that I'm going to give you now is, I'm taking some things out. Because they don't count to me as, like, comedies in the terms that I'm thinking of. So, for instance, Deadpool's number one. 21 Jump Street's number two. Bridesmaids, number three. Even though on this list it was lower because they had other things in there that didn't really, I don't know. Bridesmaids should be up on the list. If you pick that as number one, it makes sense. Guardians of the Galaxy was on the list as number four. I'll accept it, even though it's not a comedy first. I left it in there because it's Guardians of the fucking Galaxy. Yeah, there's those four. I'll accept any of them. They are the funniest. And I'm telling you still that the 2000s decade that came before it was a better... It was like the golden age. And after it ended, comedies, they just haven't been the same. I stick by that. So again, since I decided to do all Disney, let's make it easy. What's the best Disney movie? Or in other words, what are the top Disney movies of all time, in your opinion? And yes, you can pick from anything Disney. Literally. Marvel, Star Wars, the live-action remakes of the old cartoons, Pirates of the Caribbean, anything, whatever. Disney, go for it. What's your list? Because for me, Avengers Endgame is number one. I'm pretty sure it would be for a lot of other people, too. Movie quote of the week. Alright, this one's a good one. I'm sorry, it's just such a pretty boat. Shit. What's your name? Smith. Or Smitty, if you prefer. What's your purpose in Port Royal, Mr. Smith? Yeah, and no lies. Well then, I confess. It is my intention to commandeer one of these ships, pick up a crew in Tortuga, raid, pillage, plunder, and otherwise pilfer my Weasley Blackout Town. I said no lies. I think he's telling the truth. If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us. Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if he told it to you. Name that movie. I can't help but laugh, dude. Kind of gave that one away a little bit, too. You should know it. I talked about it already. In the episode, I mentioned it. And that performance is still. I love that performance. Yeah, good episode. Good episode. Okay. Real quick, this week on Caught My Attention. 2 games came out worth playing: Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Also, I saw a little something interesting in sports about the Miami Marlins. They hired the first ever female manager in history, a woman named Kim Nung. I don't know how to say that. Her name is Kim, and the last name is capital N and lowercase g. How do you pronounce just 2 letters? I'm legitimately asking. I'm not like trying to be a dick. Like, how do you pronounce it? Kim Nung? Kim Nung. No, but how would I don't know. Whatever. Interesting. Definitely go check out Mulan. And come back next week for episode 35, where I will talk about something that I haven't picked yet. Last few weeks I've had picked out in advance. I don't know what I'm gonna do this week. I'll pick something though. I'm your host, Ben Morganti, and you can follow me at DeBenji. You can follow the show at Screen Preach. You can follow other stuff and people on Instagram, usually. Yeah. Check out my website at benmorgantistory.com. You can read any of my screenplays, previews to them anyway. If you want to read the whole thing, you can contact me personally. Yeah, subscribe to BMS Studios on YouTube. If you really want to support the show, become a patron at Patreon. I'll give you the episodes early. From patrons, you can get the episodes early. That's what I'll do for you. For now, anyway. And there could be other things in there, like free t-shirts and shit. I don't know. Yeah. But that's it. Have a very, very cinematic